It was probably the biggest career risk that I've ever taken.
Today we are joined by Julia Weimer, the Solution Engineer Leader for the UKI at Wiz, to unpack what true pre-sales excellence looks like.
The balance is what I seek. And if you can find people that are really great with their people skills and relatable and like to talk to their customers, but then also really like to solve problems, it's a perfect blend of both.
From her start as a security analyst to leading high-performing SE teams, Julia shares how sales engineers can become an equal business partner to AEs and not just a technical support.
If a sales rep adds too much to their plate, if a sales engineer adds too much to their plate, and it's not an even workflow across both, then things start to fall out of whack.
We explore sales SE alignment, the power of structure like MEDDIC, and how technical champions drive deal success.
Having SEs be trusted as the credible technical person in the room, the consultant, the trusted advisor. If you give us that type of platform and that type of respect in an opportunity, then the world is our oyster.
This episode is a masterclass in symbiosis, structure, and leadership. This is her playbook.
This episode is sponsored by PGAI and Seller. Go and discover how these solutions can help amplify your sales execution. Check out the descriptions below. Welcome to Hunters and Unicorns. I'm Simon Kutis and I'm joined by my co-host Oli Kune.
Welcome back to the show, everyone.
And it's with great pleasure that we introduce Julia Weimer. Julia, welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome's fine.
Welcome to my podcast.
Yeah,
We are. I feel that way.
to be fair, you are the star of the show.
Absolutely.
We're just facilitating, so you are the star of the show.
This is true. This is true.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure having you on the show, Julia.
By way of an introduction, you are currently the Solution Engineering leader at Wiz, UKI.
Yep.
Really excited to have you on the show today. Genuinely really excited because I think it really gives a lot of balance to a lot of the topics that we've been talking about. And I suppose one of the real key things that we want to tackle in the first part of this episode today is the fact that pre-sales is so fundamentally important and so many people underutilize pre-sales and they're literally leaving money on the table, and just want to really start and go after that a little bit. So tell us some of your thoughts on that.
Well, absolutely, right? I would argue that sales engineering should always be treated as an equal partner to sales. And the reason for that is because when we're going through opportunities, when we're progressing through deals, not enabling SEs or not encouraging SEs to be a part of that journey with sales, one, it hurts the morale between the sales engineer and the rep, but also the sales engineer is so, their superpowers are really be able to look into the reality of an opportunity, be realists with where the deal is progressing and where it might go, but then also calling out the gaps and having really honest conversations with sales leaders, SE managers, to point out where it makes sense to spend more time, but then also building relationships with the technical champions and opportunities. So let's say if a deal goes awry or if something's not going the right way in any part of the deal cycle, we have another person, another trusted persona in the opportunity to go then talk to the technical champion and ask some of the difficult questions that maybe couldn't be asked from the sales rep or progress that the right way. And I think that's the beauty of a sales engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to go in a little bit deeper with that because obviously, I want to start off by asking the question around what does it look like when it's done wrong? So let's just start there. What does a bad pre-sales sales relationship look like?
Definitely when roles and responsibilities are not fleshed out. So if a sales rep adds too much to their plate, if a sales engineer adds too much to their plate, and it's not an even workflow across both. So if they're not in sync and they're doing things that really should fall onto the other person's plate, then things start to fall out of whack. The other aspect of this, where I have seen happen more often than not, is SEs being treated as a technical resource versus an enabler, a business partner, bringing them along for the journey. It's the fun part for a sales engineer, and not doing that is a disservice to the relationship between the AE and the SE, but also a disservice to the company and the product you're trying to sell.
Do you think that's a company-wide challenge, or do you think that there's still pockets? When you've seen this kind of scenario, is it because sales doesn't understand pre-sales well enough on a company scale, or is it more on individual, or kind of both?
I've seen both. In my experience, at least, I've seen it work really, really well because you have the buy-in from the very top of the company, where you have the sales leadership and the SE leadership really in sync with what the expectations are for how to move a deal forward, roles and responsibilities, great. But then also I've seen it done where we have to build on that. One of the things I love about being an SE leader is elevating the SE reputation within the company as we are the credible resource. You can lean on us to do our job in the best way possible. And if you trust us with that, it comes down to trust, right? And having SEs be trusted as the credible technical person in the room, the consultant, the trusted advisor. You hear that all the time about sales engineers. But if you give us that type of platform and that type of respect in an opportunity, then the world is our oyster, right? And I think doing that in sync with the leadership and getting the buy-in from the top, whether it's from the C-suite, whether it's from the first line leaders, wherever that is, building the relationships across the company to ensure that SEs are viewed as equal partners.
Does that change the profile that you would then look for when hiring somebody for your team then that aligns to this, rather than just, with the mindset of being a technical resource?
Yes, because I get asked all the time in interviews, who will I be working with? Can I meet my AE or my potential AE? And I always say yes, because of course you need to enjoy the people that you work with.
Yeah.
Figure out the workflow that makes the most sense for you and your AE. And some of that is just a natural go for lunch, go for coffee, get to know each other, go to dinner once a month and just shoot the shit and talk to each other about life in general. Because what I do find is that the stronger the SE and the AE relationship is, the more authentic you are in customer calls. And the more banter you have, the more you know each other, the easier it is to flow the right way and show up for the customer in the best way possible. When there is friction between an SE and an AE, it's so obvious in front of customers.
Yeah. Earlier you started mentioning things like, helping build champions, really starting to get to those technical champions. Obviously, you're now bringing MEDDIC into it, which is a qualification methodology, that typically is aligned or, towards sales individuals. Obviously, that's a big part of and really understanding it. So I suppose I lent on that question probably more towards, do you have to be interested in selling as much as being a technical resource as such?
The balance is what I seek, right? So the balance between sales and the engineering aspect of sales engineers. And if you can find people that are really great with their people skills and relatable and like to talk to their customers, but then also really like to solve problems, it's a perfect blend of both. Now, when we think about how that works in MEDDIC, it is a little bit out of our comfort. It's asking us to be a little bit out of our comfort zone to pursue technical champions, oftentimes because sales is typically the more outgoing.
Yeah.
You're used to that. You're used to being more engaging, maybe a little bit more lively. And for me, I'm personally a little bit more introverted, and I need the weekends to recharge. And it's fabulous to be in front of customers, but when I go home, I need to retreat, right? So I think a lot of SEs can relate to that. And because of that, getting SEs involved at the technical champion level where they can speak to technologists that are like-minded, that's almost exciting, but it is pushing them out of their comfort zone to be more engaging and part of the sales side.
Yeah.
Just putting my account executive hat on for a second, right? So I've gone out there, I've PG'd, I've brought this opportunity, I've got my SE, and then we're talking about the opportunity and my SE is telling me there's not a deal there, or that there's gaps in the deal. And I've obviously got my arms around this and I'm saying, no, there is. Talk to us about this dynamic and why that's perhaps even damaging the AE to really see it this way, and what they're probably leaving behind by taking this approach.
Right. So this does happen, and we do like to qualify out early, right? But we also don't want to kill the eagerness and the excitement around what could potentially be a great deal. So when we do qualify out, or when we have discussions about not going into POV too quickly, it is a matter of connecting with the AE, understanding what the gaps could be. And I think this goes to, especially at Wiz, when you have such an amazing product, there are things that you can do when you show the product for what it is, you get really excited about it with the customer, and you address those gaps as you go through, versus being so restrictive at the beginning of the qualification process, because you do want the product to speak for itself.
The pre-sales resource that's supporting you, should they just be looking at some of the technical aspects, or should they also be navigating the overall health of the deal as well? How involved should they be in that, in your perspective?
Very involved, right? Because this goes back to the equality and the empowering SEs to have the opinion in the room from their own perspective. If there's not a good technical fit, it's probably not worth exploring. But doing that with grace with the AE and getting the buy-in from the AE that this is the right way forward is the best way to do it. If you go to the other extreme, where SEs don't feel empowered to have a voice, then of course they get into a POV that was doomed to fail from the very beginning. So it's striking that balance.
Yeah.
How do you apply that at the beginning of this? Is this as simple as SE and AE sitting down and talking about the rules of engagement and how and what they expect from each other? How does that work best in the past for you?
That would be way too easy. Right? That would be way too easy. No, so there's typically lots of people involved. You want the regional director to be involved from sales. You want the SE manager to be involved, even up to the RVP layer and sometimes the AVP layer and SE leadership at the very top, because getting more people's opinions is also helpful to decide, is this something that we truly need to qualify out?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to do that with too much haste. You want to be careful about what you're qualifying out and certainly what you're qualifying in, just taking the risk, but doing it with the whole ecosystem involved.
Right.
If we were just to allow this relationship to just exist organically, you can kind of see AEs are quite strong generally, and solution engineers or pre-sales, they're generally quite more introverts. So you can see how they would that dominance. What are you doing at the leadership level to really encourage the right type of relationship, to really ensure that, what are some of the initiatives that you drive to improve that?
So we always encourage AEs and SEs to have their weekly syncs, and some of them meet on a daily basis, actually, especially when they're in more complex, larger deals that they're working through. So being completely in sync, prepping before every single customer call, I think is really crucial. Even if it's 10 minutes, just getting together, talking through what you want the outcomes of the meeting to be, and then always debriefing afterwards. So it may not happen that you always have time right after the meeting, but save time at the end of the day, sync up on how things are going. But that operating rhythm to meet at the beginning of the week, maybe the end of the week, to be in sync of what the actions need to be for the week. And then also, we do outings together, team outings, building culture. We want to ensure that SEs get to know AEs on a more personal level, whether that's shooting darts, whether that's going for beers, whether that's going for dinner. So that's really encouraged at my RD level. So I'm really in sync with the sales leaders to ensure that we're able to give them a place to build relationships outside of just Zoom calls.
Mm-hmm. You started to touch on it, which is your relationship with your peers, at leadership level. How much do you guys work together and really kind of get into the detail of, what the expectations are, what the overall strategy is that you're trying to achieve? Obviously, we're speaking very, IC level, but, how do you drive that from leadership to leadership?
It's almost the same as, it's very similar to how AEs and SEs operate. I look at RDs, I look at Marina and Alice at Wiz, RVP and AVP, and I'm having one-on-ones with them. I also feel very comfortable giving any of them a call if I need to talk about something, and they feel the same way about me. So it's truly the foundations. I treat those relationships the same way when I was an IC. When I was an SE, I vacation with one of my old AEs still to this
Right.
day. So building relationships, I seek out the friendships at work. And if they work, if they're organic, I've truly found that at Wiz with my sales leadership that I'm aligned to. So it is just a matter of getting to know them and hanging out with them, figuring out what drives them as well.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to share any names on this question, but have you had any bad experiences where you've worked with an AE and it's been a car crash?
Oh yeah,
Oh, right.
Hasn't everyone? I think so. I think
Can you
so.
share some
This
of what?
relationship, what do you think this is like? Jeez.
Yeah, I won't share names.
Yeah.
But for experiences around bad relationships with AEs, yes, it's happened. Yes, I've been treated as a technical resource. Yes, I've seen my team be treated as a technical resource. It's really uncomfortable, but this is where I think as a leader, one of the skill sets that I've worked really hard on in the last couple of years is how to deliver feedback. So getting over those uncomfortable moments where roles and responsibilities are not aligning, where I'm being asked to demo something the next morning that I have had zero prep on, but the ask came in at 11 p.m. the night before. It's expected to crack on at 8 a.m. That's happened. That happens all the time. Kicking off the POV that we weren't agreeing on as an SE team to kick off to. That happens at every company I've ever been at too. So it happens in pockets, but I think as a leader, part of one of the things that I love doing is being an advocate for my team and showing up and I guess talking about how we get through that and helping people grow from it.
This episode is sponsored by Seller. Seller provides a white glove treatment to every complex deal with their bespoke system, whilst ensuring you get the most value from your CRM for everyday selling. You've hired SEs of different kind of levels, right from junior people to some more experienced. In terms of helping them to kind of transition into that environment, how have you helped to coach some of those people early in career to really embrace, the culture of sales and help them kind of grow? Because it's not natural to a lot of people. And so tell us a little bit about that.
So on that piece, it depends on the experience that they're coming to me with. But oftentimes, at least recently, we've had a lot of SEs that don't have the MEDDIC experience. So I treat it as this is a new skill set for you, not just to learn at Wiz, but actually take this onto your next company, take this on and embrace this in your career, using the common language across the business. But then also, SEs like structure a lot of times. I certainly do. So if you position it as such, it's almost like an exciting piece for them to learn. So, and even more on that, with teaching the sales aspect, if they see the reward at the end of how that works and the gratification of closing a deal, having gone through the process, now all of a sudden they're believers in it. And that, I think, is how we align to sales and baking in the technology, right? Our comfort zone is technology. We love it. And we show up really well with tech and technical conversations. But sometimes that sales piece is what we have to develop. And I would say we do enablement. We do quarterly enablement, at least around what is the path to POV? What does that look like? When you're in a POV, what are best practices across that? But not just from the technical perspective. How should we talk to customers? How do you develop a technical champion? Do you use this technical champion template? Run with it. Talk about it in my one-on-ones with them. What technical champion are you building this week? So those are, and you have to drive that from a leadership perspective because, again, it's not natural, or the sales instincts don't have to be always natural. So it's embracing that with a little bit of structure and the enablement around that, and using sales at the same time, because I can bring Marina, I can bring Alice from Wiz into a conversation with SEs, and they would happily take on enablement for SEs on the sales side.
Have you seen that when they kind of have that epiphany moment? Is that something that you kind of see, or is it kind of a gradual, or is there kind of that moment where, wow, that really did work? I didn't see it like that.
Definitely. This happened just recently, actually. We were working on an opportunity, a fairly large opportunity with one of my SEs, and he had never used MEDDIC in his entire career, hadn't even really heard of it, but he was so open and willing to learning about it. And he leaned on myself, he leaned on the sales leader, he leaned on the rep. And every single stage we went through, his eyes were almost opened a little bit wider. And then the deal closed. And I want to, actually the deal's closed, so I don't have to knock on wood. But the fact that it went so smoothly. And it went so smoothly across the sales process. And at the end of it, he had an amazing technical champion as well that he can reach out to. That technical champion still reaches out to him. It's the art of sales, right? I think that's what you open SE's eyes to that. You give them a voice and you let them embrace a new skill set that they can learn.
Yeah.
That's how you bring sales to the table.
Really interested to understand your journey into pre-sales. So to help us understand, where was your entry? How did you transition in? Just take us kind of to that beginning moment.
It's a great story, actually. So I started my career as a security analyst working in a SOC. So I did everything: incident response, vulnerability management, threat intelligence, you name it. I've probably seen it from the practitioner side. So the first half of my career was spent there. But the way that I stumbled upon sales engineering was I was a Splunk end user in the SOC. I'd used Splunk for ages. And I was on the way to .conf, which is the Splunk user conference. It's similar to like an AWS summit for Splunk specifically. And I sat on a plane next to a Splunk sales engineer. And at first I was like, oh God, why is this guy talking my ear off? Great. But actually he told me about his job and what he did. And I'd worked with sales engineers before in my career or in my SOC experience. However, I didn't really know what the role was, and I didn't really pay enough attention. So I didn't really know this career path existed at all. But he told me about his job, and he started talking to me about that, and it sounded really interesting. It's the typical story for sales engineers is you hear about this role that is half talking, half technical.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, great. I actually enjoy talking to people and getting to know people and solving problems, but I also am technical. So here's this role that I didn't really know existed. It was a common theme for Splunk to also seek out customers for SE roles because Splunk is a fairly complex product. So he asked me at the .conf user conference. I met his boss there, and then from there, he asked me to send my resume if I was interested in the role. There was an open role, and within a week, I was interviewing at Splunk, and then I think within a month, I was at Splunk.
When did you realize that technology, and what was it about technology? I want you to go back one more step,
Sure.
which is how, why you chose to get into the field that you got into, and what was the inspiration behind actually getting into technical technology?
Well, I started uni as a nursing major. Didn't like that. Then decided, okay, I need to find something that I might be good at. I took an advanced class in high school with computer science, so I just decided to go into that. So then I did everything computer science. I also figured out really quickly that I didn't want to be a developer. I didn't like coding. So I had to find something that would actually still be technical and of interest, but would align to my studies. So I found an internship in San Antonio, Texas, and I went on in the cybersecurity internship. And my boss there actually saw my potential there. I did 2 internships at Rackspace in San Antonio, and then I was invited back after I was finished with school. So I went there and started in the SOC and progressed from there. But I've always had an affinity for science and math,
Right.
but I didn't really find the true path that I would want it to be on because it was more of an opportunistic situation of trying to get to where I needed to be just based on what I might be good at, and then trying to find a passion somewhere within there. And cybersecurity just ended up being that. So I embraced it.
It's obviously a very male, I say obviously, it is a male-dominated area. When you went into that, were there people, other females around you? Was there diversity, or was it? Help us understand that, that journey and, entering into that, because to a lot of people and a lot of females, that might be off-putting because, your peers are your peers, and, surrounding yourself and people that, alike is got to be tough. So how was that experience for you?
There was one other woman in the SOC. and that was it, but
Right.
of a 30-person SOC, right? So not very many of us at all. And I think that's true also in pre-sales. So that really hasn't changed a lot, unfortunately. But at the beginning, I didn't pay too much attention to it. I've always been someone who just wants to be the best version of myself. I never want to be the best woman in the room. I want to be the best of the best in the room in general, right? I don't want to be known as just a woman. I don't want that to be my identity in any situation in my career. But now that I'm a leader and I've been able to reflect on the benefits of bringing different perspectives to the table, I value it so much more. So I do seek that out in my interview processes and my hiring processes to ensure that diversity is included in the processes. But I guess back to your original question about how it made me feel, it didn't bother me so much at the beginning. It still doesn't change how I do things, but I notice it more and I emphasize it more in the things that I can control. So like the interview process, PGing into women in sales engineering over LinkedIn, building relationships with SEs that I think would be great for future hires. That's where I feel like I can control that versus letting it affect my work.
Yeah, great answer. Really, that's really, really insightful. So tell us about your transition then from being very technical, you're obviously in a SOC, to then the journey of discovery that you went through transitioning into pre-sales.
It was probably the biggest career risk that I've ever taken. And I say that because I'd never been in sales. I didn't know anything about sales. What the heck is MEDDIC? You know, those are not terminologies that I knew when I went over to Splunk in my first SE role. But what I can wholeheartedly say is that it wasn't difficult to fit into Splunk because I was able to sell a product, engineer with customers with a product that I believed in and that I loved using as an end user. And that follows me to this day. Any company that I go to, I have to be able to envision a product, work with a product that I would use myself as an end user. As a SOC analyst, can I use Wiz? Absolutely. That's definitely something that I'm considering, but the journey into sales was organic because I had hands-on time with the product, with Splunk. And then I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with building relationships internally with my AEs, with my peer SEs. I fell in love with the Splunk culture. Splunk really valued SEs. So that's where I learned how SEs can be elevated to be the trusted advisors, the credible resource, the credible person in the room. So that's where I was probably a little bit spoiled with an amazing culture and how SEs were really elevated in conversations.
Thanks to our sponsor, Pipeline Generation AI, the platform that researches your top accounts, creates insights and assets to help you engage more effectively. Elevate your conversations and transform your pipeline with Pipeline Generation AI today. And so obviously you started your career as a sales engineer. What was the kind of progression point from then on? So did you then start to kind of go into enterprise and majors, or just tell us a little bit about your journey?
Sure. I started in enterprise. So they really took a leap of faith with me to start in enterprise. And then from there, because of the network I built out at Splunk, I followed my boss to Lacework. When I first got to Lacework, we didn't have segmentation. So I was just an SE in SoCal working with AEs there. So doing that, and then I knew personally I wanted to diversify my career from an international perspective. So that's where I tapped my husband, my fiance at the time, and said, I think we should move abroad. I think we should do this, not just for career's sake, but also for being able to travel the world. So decided to do that, told Lacework, this is my intention. I would like to move to London if you can sponsor that in a year. And I proved myself. Great. They agreed. They were really agreeable to that. And then I got pregnant with my now 3-year-old daughter. And we thought, well, should we do this? Should we not? We had a lot of voices in our heads saying this would be crazy if you do that. But we did it. We moved to London. I moved to London with a 2-month-old.
Wow.
And I think being okay with risks and the excitement for life and knowing that it was great for my career, but also personally, I just knew that this was something I wanted to do. I don't want to give up on this dream that I've had since I was a little girl to live in London. We should just do it and embrace it. And honestly, when you embrace those hardships, those temporary hardships of being on a plane for X amount of hours, 13 hours with a 2-month-old, it's not that bad. And once you get here, it's so exciting that it's okay. So that's a little bit of that aspect.
And you stayed for the weather, obviously.
Obviously. San Diego to here and the food. Yuck. No, I'm just kidding. But, and I guess from there into leadership, that wasn't actually something I considered at all. It took someone that saw my potential again, seeing my potential on the plane for Splunk, but then also seeing my potential when I moved here as an IC, as an SE. I had a leader at the time who thought I would also make a great manager. So he proposed the idea to me. There was an open headcount for it. And I said, you know what? Actually, this is another moment of why not? If someone sees the potential in me, I should go for it. Went for it, and I got it. Of course, it was a little bit rocky at the beginning. You become a super SE, hard to let go of control. But yeah, it worked out really nicely.
What do you think are some of the attributes that they saw in you when they tried to pull you up?
Well, I did have 100% tech win rate. I'm really proud of that.
Well,
I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of that. But then also, I think having worked on some really large deals, the President's Club of it all, went twice. But then not just the accolades around the ARR that I was closing and the 100% tech win. It was organically the team came to me for questions. They could see me as someone that could backfill for them if they go on holiday. I was trusted within the team. My expertise, especially from my security background, really helped with customer conversations too. So just that credibility that I was already building within customers, but then also within my team, it almost felt organic.
Yeah. You mentioned there 100% success rate, tech win rate. What do you contribute that to? What were you doing? I think you mentioned a couple of the points, but is there anything else more to say on what it is specifically you were doing that enabled you to be able to have such success?
This is where I can plug MEDDIC.
Right, okay. Because
I learned MEDDIC at Lacework.
Right.
I didn't really use it at Splunk. So the power of MEDDIC really helped me structure my deals. And I really fell in love with MEDDIC because as someone who loves lists and crossing things off lists, and my brain thinks in Excel sheets and data and data points.
Maybe you should have been an SE.
I'm your SE. Sorry, please carry on.
No, that's okay. But it made it really easy for me to start to compartmentalize where I was in an opportunity, but not just from the sales perspective because we have to. It was actually really easy for my brain to start thinking about, okay, we're in discovery right now. We're at the demo phase. What do we need to do to move from demo to workshop? And then from workshop, how do we kick off a POV, but do it the right way? So not qualifying out too quickly, having strong relationships with my AE, and then also being able to be excited about the actions that need to happen to move between stages and progress a deal. And I would obsess about that as much as probably my AEs would. I would obsess about, well, what do we need to do next to progress this forward? And how do I help? How do I help as your SE enable you, my AE? How do I enable you? And how do I build technical champions? Let's do it together and win together.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about getting into sales yourself? Has there ever been an opportunity? Or
You're not the first person to ask me that, if I'm being honest.
Right.
No, I think I would combust if I went into sales. The amount of pressure that my sales counterparts are under consistently, I don't think I could handle that personally. But because I have so much respect for how hard it is, I really find that the sales engineering role is this gem of a role for those of us who are a little bit introverted. We really like tech and our skill sets are with the tech. So I don't want to let go of the tech. In fact, even now in leadership, I try to remain as close to the tech as possible. One, because I want to stay Audible ready with customers. But I'm never going to be able to let go of all of that because that's where my roots are. Having started as a practitioner, that's where I fell in love with cybersecurity. I fell in love with tech. So that's probably what I would say on that.
Obviously, your background is security, and pre-sales is obviously far-reaching in all domains. Do you think that your skills could be transferable? I suppose the question isn't just framed around you. I'm talking about more around from what you've learned, the experiences that you've developed. Do you think that they are then transferable into other, or do you think the technical gap limits that?
I definitely think they're transferable because if it's good tech, it's good tech. I'll follow good tech, right? Now, there's a woman named Susan St. Ledger. I crossed paths with her at Splunk. She was the president there, and then she moved on to be the president of Okta, and now she's the president of HashiCorp. And she started as an SE, so I think that's why I really related to her. She has a career bucket list. It's almost like it's exactly what it sounds like. There's different buckets that you use to diversify your career, and you don't look at your career as this linear path that you're meant to take, but really what skill sets are you embracing, learning across the different buckets. So have you had international experience? Have you worked across different segments, different company sizes? Have you been able to turn the different dials in a business and take a business from X revenue to X revenue, Y revenue? And then have you touched P&L, profit and loss in a business? So that to me might be one of those buckets that I would then jump to do and have the courage to do, is jump into a different industry. Security is my comfort zone, so it's hard to leave the comfort zone, but I wouldn't put it past me to explore an opportunity in the future to transfer my skill set to another company.
Well, it's interesting you say security is your comfort zone. Obviously, you've taken amazing leaps of faith, and I suppose every stage of your journey that's moved you forward. You've had to take that leap of faith. And I suppose, again, going back to who you are as a person, what is it that really defines you as a person, that really kind of underpins the success and who you are? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, he's getting deep.
Ooh,
he's gone deep
yes.
on you.
I think to answer that question, I need to go back in time a little bit. So my dad is one of 16 children to the same mom and dad. And my grandpa traveled from the Philippines to the U.S., essentially the ideals of the American dream.
Yeah.
And building that out. He met the love of his life, and my grandmother was pregnant 14 times. Now, I've been pregnant once, and that's enough, right? Like, it's a lot. It's a lot on a woman's body. So I think my roots are actually with people that want a lot for themselves. My grandmother obviously having the perseverance to build the life that she did, all 5 feet of her, and having the ambitions to want more for your life. That's probably just in my blood now. And I grew up in a household that was pretty strict, did a lot of extracurriculars, sports, swimming, track, volleyball, soccer, football, but then also in art, musical theater, choir, dance, and then having this mentality in the house that B's are not good enough. It's a lot of pressure for a little kid, but I think from a very young age, my tolerance for stress and putting a lot on my plate, and then in turn creating some childhood trauma. Of course, we all have that.
We all have that.
Anxiety, depression, whatever.
Yeah.
I've seen it all.
Yeah.
But I think embracing that, harnessing that, and turning it into a strength, as I'm always seeking out, how can I help others? How can I show up as the best version of myself? And then how can I make an impact on other people's careers? How can I make an impact on the company that I work for? And that's really important to me. So that's a long-winded answer to my background.
So I'm so glad I asked that question.
I want to take this opportunity to ask you all very kindly to go and hit the subscribe button. Whether you're on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, it will mean the world to us if you could hit that subscribe button. It means we can continue to bring you great content and will ensure that you don't miss out on any of our great content.
So talk to us about your experience as, a very career-driven person, but also as a mother. How have you been able to, balance the two?
I'm very fortunate because I do have a very supportive husband at home. I'm privileged in that I can afford to pay for help as well if I need to. I have a very strong inner circle, family circle too, that will come out and stay with us and help spread the load, right? We say it takes a village, and that's very accurate. But what I would say too is that once you find the rhythm and routine that works for you, you can do both. Now you do have to probably sacrifice moments. I can't go to happy hours all the time, but that's probably a good thing actually, because it keeps me healthier and I can spend more time with family anyway. But there are certain aspects that you have to then balance between the two. Sometimes it also means that I do have to come back online after my daughter goes to sleep. And I choose that because I love to work. And I personally never wanted motherhood to be my identity. I wanted it to be a part of my life. And I can't wait for my daughter to grow up and look at her mother as, wow, my mom did all of that while also raising me. She did both. And I aspire potentially to do the same and seek out other ways that, bring fulfillment to my life. And work does that. Work is another aspect of my identity, but it's not my whole identity. And the other point to that is I've loved being a mother because sales can harden you a little bit, especially being a woman in sales and sales engineering in general, because obviously it's a male-dominated field. So I would say that it has hardened me a little bit. But since becoming a mother, I am so much softer and warmer at home. So it changes my dynamic a little bit, and I'm more easygoing. I can be super goofy with her, and that's not something that comes out in my everyday work. And in fact, people at work would probably think you're goofy. No, you're not. You're not goofy. Yeah. So yeah, it's just it's a different part of my life that I really love.
That was an amazing answer.
Oh,
that
good.
was really good
Okay.
answer. That was a really good answer.
Well,
Okay.
that's probably the answer that I feel most confident about, honestly.
Well, that's the one. Normally it's when you overthink about that answer
Yeah,
to that
you
question because you're thinking too much
I
about...
don't want to offend anyone either.
Don't want to offend, but, I think like anything, it's diversity of thought, isn't it? And it's kind of, we're all dealing with different situations. The more... if we all went out with the same message, which is the same message, we're always going to... we're going to alienate so many people because the realism is actually in really how people really feel about that. So,
Yeah.
and I'm so glad that we've got a variety of different answers to that, because I think, again, any woman looking in and anybody in diverse thinking in any way or, being, it's now going to give them opportunity, right? And it's now hopefully one of those they're going to relate to. So when you're hiring for your team, is there anything specific that you're looking for outside of technical capabilities?
Yes, especially in the startup world, I'm looking for an entrepreneurial mindset. I'm seeking out ways, what type of projects, what type of value have you brought to your current company? What have you stepped out of bounds with across your typical roles and responsibilities? What else have you done that would make you stand out? What makes you unique? Because I want to bring that into the company, because we're trying to make an impact and we want to be able to influence what we're working on and give back to maybe the global SE team. So finding gems like that who are motivated, want to learn, not just from the technical perspective, we can teach the tech all day, but who would embrace the entrepreneurial mindset where they don't ask for permission, they ask for forgiveness almost. And I think I typically seek that out. So figuring out what SEs are working on in their current companies, projects that they're working on that would then potentially translate over to Wiz or whatever company it would be. And then humility also. I certainly ask for questions in interviews, how they respond to direct feedback, because I am certainly a big advocate for learning how to give feedback. So if they can't take the feedback that we give, good or bad, and they can't do it with humility and grace, then it's probably not the best candidate for coming over.
What's the vision? What are you working towards? If you're trying to build a stellar team right now, you've got lots of exciting stuff, you're flying, just kind of tell us a little bit, a nice message about where Wiz is and why it's still an attractive place to go.
Definitely.
Obviously it is.
Yeah. I would say I'm trying to build a world-class SE team, right? Not just known for the UK, but globally recognized as setting the stage, setting the tone for what SEs should look like. And that means having high standards. I have very high standards for myself, so I have really high standards for my team. But when you have high standards and that trickles down into your team, people feel motivated and excited about what they're showing up to work to do. They feel a purpose. They feel the camaraderie across the SEs, lighting up Slack channels internally, and there's no dumb questions, right? Creating that safe space for SEs to prosper, to build their own careers. And for me, one of my favorite things about leadership is seeing the potential in SEs to be, they're already great, but how could they even be better? And me and my position, helping them elevate their own careers and seeing some of the SEs that I've led in my career be promoted to senior, to principal, to first line leadership for the first time, that's where I get my energy. That is the most exciting bit for me as a leader, is being able to help my team accomplish what they're set out to do with their own careers. So I hope that reflects in my team today, and yeah, I think that's it.
It definitely does. Obviously, you were introduced to us by Josh Reiner, Marina Ayton, and Alice Carlisle as somebody we have to get on the show because of what you've achieved and what you're achieving and what you're doing right now. So, I can speak for those three. They speak ridiculously highly of you, and very, 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 very honored to have you in as part of the team.
I'm so humbled because I didn't know them before I came to Wiz.
Right.
And I've been at Wiz for 8 months.
Yeah.
So part of it was taking a risk with not knowing the network of leaders that I was coming into, but having done the research about what they had accomplished previously at Z, and knowing, okay, I could definitely learn from these people, and embracing, they've really taken me with them, right?
Yeah.
They've taken me on their journey. Obviously, they knew each other before they came to Wiz, but I feel absolutely part of what they're trying to do. And working with people like Alice, Marina, and Josh especially, is they show up to work every single day wanting to be the best versions of themselves. So why would I not do the same? And it's great to marry my values and what I've always done previously with leadership within Wiz. And that also trickles down into our teams, hopefully, with having high standards, operating with excellence, and showing up to work every day ready to go.
Amazing. Well, as I said, they speak so highly of you. So and we know of the reputation and people that have gone on to illustrious careers for underneath them. So we're really
excited to see where it goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very exciting. So this is the point where we reflect on what's been a really great session. We really appreciate you coming in today. But I think some of the real key, the key focus here is the fact that when you do marry sales and pre-sales and you do have this symbiotic relationship, ultimately amazing things can happen. Things that aren't possible if you are siloed, if you are closed, and that's whether you're an AE or whether you're a pre-sales, but actually embracing each other and really working together to navigate. It just completely transforms what you can achieve, the size of deals, overcoming complexity, overcoming adversity. And I think that's a real message that I'm so glad we've been able to cover, and a lot of the impact that you've driven both as a leader and as an IC as part of your journey. It's amazing that we've been able to capture that. So thank you so much for that. And also just hearing your journey and how you obviously started as technical in the SOC, and how you've kind of elevated and you've taken the risks and you are where you are today. And the world's your oyster and the future's bright, and we're really excited to see how your journey continues. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your time and for your company, for putting up with us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
It's been an absolute privilege. So the only other thing to note, if you've liked this, we have actually done a dedicated pre-sales and technical series, which actually went alongside the original 33 CXO series that we did, which was one of the first series. And that is the unsung heroes that are pre-sales and technical. So yeah, if you're interested in that, we'll put a link to that particular playlist in the description below. But we appreciate you tuning in today. If you like what you've heard, please do subscribe to our various channels on iTunes, YouTube, and Spotify. All the links will be in the description below, and we look forward to welcoming you back for another session very soon. Take care and goodbye.